Welcome back to the Haunted Therapist podcast, where we explore the intersection of psychology, trauma, spirituality, and the paranormal. I'm Brett Harpp, licensed mental health counselor, EMDR certified trauma therapist, and your haunted therapist. Today's guest, I can't even believe this is so surreal. She's a psychic medium, paranormal investigator, speaker, mother, and one half of the paranormal world most recognizable couples, Tessa Groff. And alongside her husband, Nick Groff, Tessa has spent years helping people connect with loved ones in spirit, investigating haunted locations, creating documentaries, and sharing her unique perspective on the unseen world. And with the new series on the horizon and the recent premiere of The Devil's Mark, there's a lot to talk about. So let's get haunted with Tessa Groff. Tessa, welcome to the Haunted Therapist podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm thrilled that you're here. And we were just talking off camera about our Italian heritage, as one does, on the Haunted podcast.
Which I believe that Italian heritage has something to do with intuition. I just think like people from Italy, because I have family in Italy, it's very much talked about over there, and for whatever reason, I've noticed just a lot of people with Italian heritage have a level of mediumship or intuition. And I don't know, I might sound biased, but I'm just putting pieces together and I feel like there's some correlation.
I think so. I think too, it's how our ancestors grew up. It's maybe it was part of the culture, or, I think mine grew up kind of like in a mountainous area. So they were riding donkeys all over the place and really connecting one with nature. But then to here in America, like I didn't even tell you this, my grandmother's first cousin is Russ Salvatore.
I love Salvatore's. Oh, how funny. So that's where me and Nick went to Salvatore's, like the steakhouse after we got engaged, because we got engaged at Shays in Buffalo. He surprised me, had no idea what was going on. And then we went to Salvatore's afterwards to eat.
Yeah, it's so over the top, right? Like
Love it.
So gaudy and ridiculous and gorgeous.
Yeah.
And then my dad's first cousin is Mark Supples, who owns Mother's. So I just had to make that connection. Because I think you grew up in Niagara Falls, though, right? So you weren't like...
Yeah, but I had family between both. But I did. I grew up in Niagara Falls, right around the corner from the infamous Stefano Magaddino funeral home. And where the Magaddinos lived, they lived right behind me. It was a very Italian neighborhood, I will say that. But I know a lot of people, like we have a lot of friends, very close friends and paisans in Buffalo. And the whole area was very Italian for quite some time.
Yeah. And then I also recently learned another connection we have is that you have a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that.
Amazing.
I tried to be normal. Like I tried to go to school and that's like, my family, if you want my honesty, I had wanted to be in entertainment my whole life, but dance, because I was a dancer. So I've been on stage since I was 3. And so that was like my plan. I'm like, I'm going to go to New York. I had been scouted at multiple like dance competitions and stuff. So I was like, I'm going to do entertainment, because I also think that side of me, the dance side and the performance side, kind of was an escape for what I was able to do as a medium, channeling and stuff. And so I had an outlet and I loved it. And it worked really well with my life. And then my grandmother, strong Sicilian, and my mom was like, no, you're going to go to college. I'm like, all right, okay. So I went to college and I went for so many different things I can't even tell you. Nobody really knew what my major was at the time, because I took so many different classes, but I ended up graduating in education. And then my master's was school counseling with the bridge program over to clinical mental health counseling, so that I can do both outside of a school setting. A lot of people don't even know that. I'm a total nerd.
Wait, where did you go to grad school?
Niagara University.
Okay, I figured. Nice.
Yeah. So I really tried to be normal, but I feel like the mediumship side was either going to get me fired, or I was like, I have to just break out of this into an area where I felt I could help people more.
And it's probably something that you knew that you had from the beginning, which we'll dive into, but it is so important to just follow. Like I studied dance too, all the way up through college. And I was gonna do dance therapy, or I could have done dance therapy, but family, thank you, love you, God bless, they wanted me to go and get a real job. That was a hobby.
Yeah, exactly.
I could have been a dance therapist, but it's fine.
Yeah,
it all worked out. Yeah. So when did you first realize you were experiencing things that other people weren't?
So I had a near-death experience when I was about 3-4 years old. I was born with a condition that went untreated and kind of unrecognized for quite some time. And so by the time I was about 3, 4 years old, my mom had just gotten sick of every doctor saying there's nothing wrong with her. So she brought me to Children's Hospital in Buffalo. And there was a really wonderful doctor who found out exactly what was wrong with me. And at the time that he found out, it was to the point where, like, my body, because of the condition, started basically poisoning itself. And so I went into almost sepsis. And so they had to do a major, major surgery, which no doctor really wanted to touch because I was so small and so young at the time. And this was such a invasive and major surgery, but they had no choice. So I underwent this surgery and there was a lot to it. At the time, my mom, this is 30 plus years ago, I don't know how many years ago now, and they allowed her into the anesthesia room where they put me under. They would never allow that now, but they did. And so my mom's standing there, and I just remember being put to sleep and seeing these people in white around the hospital bed. Now, in a child's perspective, I thought they were doctors and nurses because they were in white and they were smiling. And so I was talking to them as I was going to sleep. And when I woke up, I said to my mom after the surgery, and I was, aware, I said, why were all of those people staring at me when they put me to sleep? And she's like, nobody was there. It was just me. So then moving forward, I was in the hospital for close to 2 weeks. I couldn't walk. I had to relearn how to walk, all these types of things. And I just remember one night in specific, and I don't know, like, I think, let me preface this by saying I believe I was born with my ability because it was passed down in my family. But I think that this experience heightened it. And so I remember being in the hospital and again, the door opens, a bright white light comes in, and it just surrounds my bed. And at the time, my mother was sleeping on a cot. And I do remember it was stormy outside. So I was like awake, couldn't really sleep, watching this lightning storm. And in came all these lights and again surrounded my bed. And I saw these faces smiling down at me. It was not scary. It was not I just felt comfortable, but I was kind of like, what the hell is going on? And I'm looking at my mom. She didn't budge. And then as fast as they came in, they went back out. And when I went home from that hospital, everything just really started. The one thing I remember the most was trying to sleep at night, and this person would come into my room. Now, mind you, my mother at the time had like the I showed you a picture of my son, right? Okay, so imagine his hair, but like the 80s, like huge perm, curly hair, right? So I'm looking at this person coming into my room, and I see this curly afro type hair, and I'm thinking like, oh, mom's coming in. But when they got close enough, it was a man. And I was like, okay, don't know you, went under my covers, got freaked out. This happened every single night. Finally, I had enough courage and I said, why do you keep coming into my room? And he sat down on my bed and he smiled at me and he said, I'm your Uncle Tommy. He started telling me he showed me his shirt. His shirt was very specific. He says, you have to tell your mom and your grandmother the shirt that I'm wearing, and that he was happy about wearing this shirt, and that there was these nicknames and this message for my grandmother. So I go up the next day and I tell my mom, I'm like, hey, Uncle Tommy came last night and he told me blah, 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 blah. And like the look on her face was just, how in the hell would you know this? But I also think that was my mom's validation that I had the same ability as her, because she has the same gift as me, but at the time she kept it quiet because it was so taboo. She never spoke about it. And so I think it was kind of a moment where my mom was like, maybe I have somebody to talk to about this. She has this ability. It was my uncle who passed away before I was born, and he died tragically in that house. And so the shirt he was wearing was the shirt he was buried in because it was his favorite shirt. The nicknames that he gave for my mom, for my grandmother, my brother had a nickname, and just he was a very fun, loving guy, but he died so young. And I would have never known those things because I was only 3, 4 years old. I didn't know who Uncle Tommy was. And that was my first recollection because it was so vivid and it happened so often. And then from there, it just skyrocketed. It just never stopped after that.
And it gets stronger as time goes on, right? And would you say that it gets stronger as time goes on because you've embraced it, and so it's like a loop that you're in where you're constantly training that muscle? Or was it just going to get stronger? Does it get stronger as we age anyways?
I think that you have an option. I don't think you can ever fully get rid of it. I think that is a misconception where people are like, I lost the gift, or I maybe I could turn it off. I don't believe that you can turn it off, but like a volume control, I believe you could turn it down, you could turn it up. I think I was, for myself, with my mom being able to see and feel those things, plus she was interested in it, I had somebody that helped me to foster that, whereas maybe other people, maybe it was taboo in their family or in their culture, in whatever. And so then they would turn it down and fight against it their whole life. But I was able to foster that. So I do believe it got stronger because of that. And I also think that everybody's different in the way that they feel spirit, pick up on them, and maybe it changes throughout time for certain people. For me, though, it remained almost exactly the same as when I was young. Like I can see full-blown people and hear them. For I do a lot of criminal cases for law enforcement, missing persons, cold cases, and I'll get snippets of things that took place to help me. And so my ability just really heightened, and it just took off after that. And it did become a lot stronger. And I think on top of it becoming stronger, it took a lot of work to identify what that is, how to use it, and really build on that as well.
Yeah, and for anyone listening, I mean, Tessa's got so many stories about working with law enforcement. I was just listening to one on a podcast that you were on about finding like somebody that was like in the woods by a river or something, finding you were able to
Yeah.
remote view and find help law enforcement. Like go search Tessa if you want to be just like enthralled and wide-eyed like I am. Like it's so validating in this field, right? To just be able to listen to those stories. And one thing that I notice is people like some of my clients are intuitive. And
Hmm.
they'll be like, or is it anxiety? Like, am I seeing that I should or shouldn't go do this thing? Or is it anxiety? Which is fair. And I'm really glad that they're, self-aware enough to ask that then. But like, how do you know the difference between anxiety or like your imagination running wild with you? Or like this is concrete, like literally happening. This is intuitive information that you're getting.
This is such a loaded question because when I was doing like all my clinicals and everything for school, I had a real problem because I came across people, and you know how this is, right? You have intern hours and all this type of stuff. And so, like, you're sitting there with these people who are supposedly diagnosed schizophrenic, bipolar, all these things. And I had a real problem because there was a few times that I witnessed for myself where these people were saying and picking up on things that I was like, I can almost confirm that they are picking up on intuition, possibly spirit. And I'm like, but yet, when you're in a clinical setting, your job is to redirect them back to
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know how I could, in good faith, do this for some people. Not to say that this isn't, that it's every person, but that there was a good amount of people where I was. And so then that led me into researching schizophrenia. And is there any research being done on like the correlation between like people maybe being misdiagnosed for things when they're actually picking up on spirit? So that's one side of the question. For myself though, personally, I will say that when I was younger, it was very hard to determine. Like it was very difficult for me to be able to, you're in school, you're around a lot of people, you're picking up on their stuff. Just going out to a store in general, right? Like you're in Target and you walk by somebody and maybe they just lost a loved one and I'm picking up on that. And it took a lot of time for me to determine the difference. For me now, it's easy for me to tell what's what. And I think just over the years, it's like any ability that you have or anything that you're training in, right? Like if you're doing it constantly, you just know. And so I've had to teach myself over the years. So it's very rare that I mix them up anymore. But I will say when I was younger, it was a struggle. It was a struggle.
Well, I bet it feels different in your body. Like, I bet anxiety, we all know what anxiety feels like in our body, like somatically. So I bet intuition doesn't have that same kind of feeling. I mean, it might if it's like a fear where you're like, ooh, don't go near that person or whatever. But I bet intuition
Mhm.
feels different in your body. Does it actually? I should ask.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if I feel a sense of almost anxiety where you can kind of, I guess, comprehend what that feels like, whenever that happens to me, though, I know something's coming. Like, I know that to prep for something. And so for me, I'm always like, this doesn't feel like anxiety. It feels like it kind of, but like for me, I'm like, okay, that means something's coming. And most of the time it is something. And so for me, yeah, anxiety can feel that way. But then again, let's say you're in Target. There's a funny story that Nick and I have about that, but I'm like walking past somebody and they're going through like a really rough time. And let's say I'm not fully blocked off, right? and I'm next to this person, I could feel what they're feeling. That's the empathic side of people who are intuitive. Like you can feel what they're feeling, and you have to learn to distinguish that. I think that's also why children have a rough time, like in school and stuff like that, and picking up on things. And there's no regulation for these kids in school, and to be able to filter that out, because if they have a classmate that's going through something or whatever and they're picking up on it, these kids have no idea that it's not their own emotions that they're feeling, but they also don't have the tools to help them with that or help them through it, you know? So when I was teaching, I was pushing for like meditation and yoga classes for the kids, and like, let's give them something to filter out what it is that they're going through throughout the day. You know, I think it's so important.
Montessori.
Yes.
Speaking of
Yes.
our Italian heritage, like, they do a great
Yeah.
job of that because they know that a lot of kids have ADHD and whatnot, and they do a
Yes.
really great job of connecting the mind and body.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. We have Luciano was in a Montessori like pre-K 3, and I found this place and I was like, "Oh, we're going to try this for sure." And he did so good. It was amazing. I'm like, "I wish I would have had this for my older kids, you
Yep.
know?" But yeah, Montessori is great for stuff like that.
Well, and speaking of your kids, I've heard you talk about that they're intuitive, or at least one of them, 1 or 2 of them are really intuitive as well, have some of your same skills or gifts.
Yeah, I think so. I have Me and Nick were like the Brady Bunch, right? Like I had 2 boys, he had 2 girls, and then we came together. We have 2 boys together, so we have 6 all together. Just saying.
Whew,
And
I just
I
have the
do think,
1.
right? Yeah. It is like a friggin' circus act juggling
Yep.
everybody. But I think every one of the kids has abilities. They're just different. I think my oldest son for sure he's a carbon copy of me in every way, shape, and form. And I knew he had abilities from a young age. I will also say my youngest son for sure has abilities, and that's a whole story in itself. But my oldest, I knew the minute that he was born that he had abilities. He was doing weird stuff. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but like a baby is not supposed to be able to make direct eye contact with people for quite like there's like a period of time where it's like, oh, they're blurry and they only see objects or like shadows. And my son comes out and he's like in the delivery room being passed around, big Italian family. Everybody's like lined up and they're passing around this newborn, but he's making eye contact. And I remember my mother looking at me and being like, does he see us? Why is he staring at us? How is he doing this? Like there was weird stuff that would take place even from the get go where I was like, I think he's super intuitive. He talked really early at a young age. And so he was able to communicate a lot of stuff. And that's really when it took off. And I realized he could see and feel things. And when he was about 3, he's the one who knew my one grandmother was going to pass away before it took place. And he told me the night before it happened. Mind you, my grandmother on my dad's side, she was like pushing in her 80s, doing Zumba classes and volunteering at my dad's school. And like, so she was nonstop. And my great grandmother on that side lived to be like 96 years old, 98, somewhere like that. And there was no reason to believe that my grandmother was going to pass away, anything was going to happen. And I remember the night before he said, he goes, Mommy, why is Nana Alanda going to go see the angels? And I was like, she's not, you know, she's not going to go. She's fine. So then I like called my dad. I was like, have you talked to, you know, grandma? And he's like, yeah, I was just there. She's fine. And then the next morning I put him in the car to go to his pre-K 3 class, and we have to pass her street, and we passed her street and he looks down the street and he goes, Nana's with the angels and with Papa Rocco, so she's okay now. Full blown panic. I'm like, what is, so I drop him off. I call my dad. He was at her house with EMT. It was just a freak thing that happened. So I knew even at the age of 3 that he was very, very strong in his, you know, intuition and his abilities. And, you know, and so I have stories for days about each
Yeah, yeah,
kid and
yeah,
how they're,
yeah.
you know,
But
yeah,
that actually kinda answers the question we were debating earlier of if is it anxiety or intuition, because he's not gonna be I mean, I guess some tiny tiny souls can have anxiety, 3 or 4-year-olds can, but probably not, 9 times out of 10, they're not gonna have an anxiety disorder at 3. So it's not like he
right.
was worried, he was curious, which is something I talk a lot about how the paranormal can be so good for our mental health, as it puts us in a state of curiosity. Because he just said, "Well, why is she going with the angels? How come?"
Yeah. 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 He would ask a lot
Interesting.
of questions. He would always say things like, what I always found interesting is he would constantly say there's angels sitting on the roof of the house. And I'm like, I never heard that before. And I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? And he's like, well, that's where they sit. to protect the house. And I'm like, okay, dumbass walks outside and I'm like looking at the roof, like, what is he, like, what is he, can I see these things? Like, what is happening? And
Right.
so I'm just like,
You probably
there's
could.
gotta be, yeah, I'm like, but no, I did not feel or see anything. So I'm just like, where is he getting this from? Like, where? So that also leads me to believe too that like kids have such a high level of intuition. There is no filter.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
anything that we develop over the years. Like mine is regulated, right? So my abilities are regulated. There are things that, as an adult, you carry with you, traumas and fears and all these things that these kids just don't have.
Right.
And so you start to wonder, like, they're seeing these things that supposedly an angel, whether you believe in that, or not, or whatever level that is religion wise, or is it such a pure thing that he's seeing because he's so pure himself that I myself am not able to see that anymore? You know what I'm saying? So
Right. Well,
I learned a lot from my kids having these abilities as much as I'm trying to teach him, and so that it's been a really, really interesting journey.
yeah. Right. And that's why it's so good to do therapy if you feel like you need it, or especially to do things like EMDR for like trauma therapy, because it levels the playing field. It puts you back in a state of homeostasis where then you can start having new experiences. It actually makes your filter more clear, or unfiltered, your antenna more
Hmm.
filtered. I tell my son Enzo that he's an antenna because he's always kind of been like that too, but he declines. He rejects it. He's not into it.
Yeah.
But you're
Yeah.
so good at it. You're so strong. But
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what the heck?
I know, it's your gifts. But speaking of mental health too, to loop back to that, what you were saying about studying, patients with schizophrenia, and you're like, I don't know, something could be there. In the DSM, way back in the back of this big, thick 1,000-page book, it literally is snuck in there where it says if something is culturally expected or spiritually sanctioned, that it's free from being a pathology. It's not diagnosable. You can hear all the voices you want. I'm like, well, then
Yep.
what?
What's the point?
Okay, it's my
What
culture.
do we do?
It's my religion.
Yeah.
There. Not let me
Yeah.
go. Right.
Exactly.
What's
Yeah.
real? I don't know what's real. It's weird.
I know. I know. I know. And I'm glad that it's being talked about more because these were questions I had, years ago. Like I was in school when I was pregnant with my first. So I'm talking like 12 plus years ago. And I'm like, I wish people would talk about this more. But even back then, like from that point to now, there's been so much more to talk about,
Yeah.
so much more openness to it. And I'm just excited about that because I'm like, I'm not crazy. Other people are talking about this. I'm not insane. This is so cool.
Yeah. Well, you can't not do it. And the fact that
Yeah.
you're a dancer too, I mean, that talk about the mind, body, spirit being all in aligned.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're like a beacon. Like your whole thing is just completely aligned mind, body, spirit. And you're probably, because you're so comfortable on stage because of that from years of performing, that's probably where your gifts really shine. Or maybe not. They might shine when you're driving in your car too. But do you
No,
find that?
yeah, you hit the nail on the head because stage to me, it sounds crazy because like a lot of people get stage fright and all this stuff. And I just always felt like the stage for me was like one of my more comfortable places. And so when I had the opportunity in like 2018, well, I was doing more like gallery shows stage wise since like 2016, 2017. And then I started doing casino shows, like large venue shows, and I was selling out casinos. And I remember the very first time being in like an extra large space, like a casino show, and I remember just feeling like because when you channel, it's not my information, right? It's somebody else's information that I as the medium am just relaying. And so you don't necessarily always retain everything that you're saying because it's not yours. And I just remember looking back like you go through it and then you almost like black out. You're like, what just happened? And then you go back and I'm like watching the videos and I'm like, holy crap, like I can't believe that that came through or oh my god, that was a insane reading, looking back on it, I'm like, there's got to be a correlation between like my comfort zone on a stage and being able to use my ability in that space and how much more strong it feels. And it just, I have a lot more fun with it too. Not that like I do think, and that's a misconception too. Like in my shows, there's humor, there's like all these things. And I use my personality to deliver those messages. But like, people's loved ones on the other side, they keep their own personality. So like if you were sassy in this world, you were sassy over there. And that shows through a lot too in my mediumship. And it's just so fun to do these shows because you're witnessing spirit communication firsthand, but there's also a human side to that that shows through, and that even though these people pass on, their personalities and everything shine through from the other side. So that stage for me and doing readings that way is one of my favorite things to do.
Do you think that there's certain professions that lend themselves more naturally to intuitive experiences, like just the profession itself? Like, for example, just even over the last year, I've only gotten into this professionally since literally since last year. I went on my
Yeah.
first ghost hunt ever was at Lilydale with Bridget Marquardt. I was like, "Oh,
Love
well, I guess
Bridget.
I'm supposed to be here." Like, the ghost
Yeah.
hunting herself is here. But ever since I opened myself up to that in my counseling sessions, and I don't bring this up in session or anything unless it's therapeutically aligned or whatever, but
Yeah.
I'm knowing what people are gonna say. Like, I had a client who just moved into a new house, and she was explaining the layout to me. I already knew what she was gonna say. Or I had a client actually who I don't think I'm not revealing anything, but this client's grandmother had just passed away, and it was an Italian family in Niagara Falls, actually. And all of a sudden, the taste of pizzelles just flooded my mouth. And this was like a newer client to me. I didn't really know
Yeah.
this person at all. And I go, this is going to sound crazy, but I had the connection with her. So I said that. She goes, "Oh my God, she had a cookie business, and we have a pizzelle machine in the basement."
Oh, I love that.
Like,
Yeah.
can you bring? Does she have any in the freezer? You know what I mean?
I know. Did she save any?
Pre-made,
You don't you don't need to pay me. Just pay me in pizzelles.
no copay. Pre-made pizzelles. Fantastic. So obviously, my profession could kind of lend itself to it because we're having this one-on-one, very raw connection. Everybody's being authentic and open and emotional. But I wonder if there's other professions that just kind of like cross that line a little bit with being able to be more
Yeah.
intuitive.
I think that if you have intuition, you're always led into a healing profession. So like teaching to me, teaching you need to know what your kids need at all times, and people learn differently or they struggle or they come from like when I worked in schools, I worked in an inner city school, so there was kids that came from like really tough homes and really tough situations. Their parents were killed, their father was in jail, sibling, just so much stuff. And so as a teacher, you're in charge of these kids. You're in charge of their emotional stability, their physical safetyness, whatever. And so I think that like teachers are an example of that, where you lean on your intuition throughout the day, and then you can go on to doctors, nurses, therapists. I even think law enforcement, from working doing criminal cases and stuff, I've seen where law enforcement have intuition. I said this in a recent podcast. It's like maybe an officer solves a case on just a hunch, or they just know, or investigators. I think that their intuition clocks in as well, and they just don't realize what they're doing. And so I think that there's a lot of these careers, but I think you're led into that because of that inherent intuition that you have. You might not recognize it. It might not ever cross your mind, but I would put money on the fact that people in these different career paths utilize their intuition very strongly on a daily basis. My mom was an RN, so she went to be a nurse. And so, her and I have talked about this in links, about her experiences in nursing school and the different jobs that she had and just things that would come through. And then she'd talk to other nurses, and these other nurses were having these experiences. And so, yeah, I do believe there's definitely a correlation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it almost feels too like you have to be, not you have to be, but like a lot of people are chosen for this work, right?
I
But
think so.
I would say, just like I said, over the past year, things have taken off so quickly for me. Just like people that I'm meeting or connecting with, opportunities, like conferences that I'm speaking at, meeting you, like you and Nick both saying yes to me. I'm like, okay, what? Yes, okay. Like, it's just everything is aligning, and it seems like if you're meant for this path, if you say yes to it, if you open the door and are like, "Come on in," to spirit or whatever, man, spirit comes in and brings all of its friends and its family, and it's just like flooded. Like your life can be so full if this path
Well,
is aligned.
yeah, the universe will open doors for you so long as you're on the path that you feel, and That's why people, I hear all the time, like, I would love to do this, but it's a risk. Or like, what if I don't make money? What if I don't, fall in line with this, or I don't make it? And it's like, it is a risk, 100%. But the universe tends to have your back when you decide, like, this is what my path is. I know I need to be doing this. I know there's risk involved. But if you take that risk, 9 times out of 10, the universe is going to step in and open those doors for you because you're now on that path that you're supposed to be on. But I think fear holds people back, which is, a very humanistic thing that happens. But for me, even, I'm like, I have a whole master's degree. And I was questioned up and down about what you're doing. Like, what do you mean you're going to go do mediumship full time? Or what do you mean you're going to do this stuff? And I'm like, yeah. And it was a huge risk. And I was a single mom for 6 years straight, So I'm like, I am in charge of these little ones. And if I didn't have confidence in what I was doing and being able to utilize what I know to help people and stuff, I wouldn't be doing it.
Wow. Well, I also heard you say you're an Aries too. So that helps.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
yes, like,
Yes.
we're going
Yes.
for it. Like, charge the cavalry.
This is
Just
it.
me, myself,
Yeah.
and I. That's all I need. Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay, but there is so much overlap though. So, you made this huge leap professionally for sure, and it was more of a risk, but there's also, don't you find it's crazy how much overlap there is, which is what I talk about between psychology and the paranormal. Like, even right
Yeah.
down to the fact that in grad school we're taught, well, you can't take credit. People will try to thank you. You can't take credit for their progress because then you're going to have to take blame if they're not doing well, if they're not successful in therapy or whatever. That's gotta be
Yeah.
the same for you if you're giving someone a read. And we're also providing the opportunity for people to find closure
Yeah.
or heal and grow. And people are crying like in front of both of us all the time, right? So
Yeah.
so there is so much overlap in the two fields. Like you just were cut out for it no matter what.
Yeah, and I think even with readings, my job as a medium is to relay the messages from your loved ones. And I'm always getting the thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm like, don't thank me, thank them. I'm pretty much just
Right.
the mailman. I'm the mail woman who gives you this message from the other person. They're the ones providing that to you. I'm just the person in between. And then what they do with that is their own journey, right? So, like, spirit wants is for you to heal. They're fine, which is super unfair. They're fine. They're not suffering from anything. They're happy. They're like, I'm with other people that we lost. Everything's great. And I just want you to be okay. And then that's our journey here. We can't ever go backwards. And, because you always hear like time heals everything. I don't believe that to be true.
It's not
I
true.
believe that we have to learn to live a new life without these people. And there is a grief journey that goes along with it. That's on your own timeline. And you might never be that same person again. Like you can't ever find that sense of, okay, this feels normal, but you could find a new sense of normal and you could be a new person on this new path, learning to live this new life. But that's all on your time. And so, I sometimes feel the weight of things when people expect you to like fix everything, right? And then you want to fix everything. You're like, I want to help more. I wish I could help more.
Yeah.
And it's hard to kind of hand off what you can do to them and then allow them to heal. And that's especially hard for me when I do like missing persons cases or homicides or bringing justice to these families for things that take place, especially when it involves kids. And there is a weight that comes with that where you're like, I wish that I could do more, and having to accept that you've done all you can do, for those people.
Yeah,
It
that's
could be
true.
heavy.
Yeah, that probably is really, yeah, that's like an extra bit of everything that we're saying about how that person has to be responsible for their own change and their own journey, or that the message is coming from spirit. For me, the message is coming from inside their own head. A lot of times they have to be the one that makes the change or whatever. But yeah, I bet that takes it to a whole nother level, being involved, knowing
Yeah.
about victims and things that have happened to people. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And even like, and I reiterate this all the time because people are always like, well, if she was such a good medium, why didn't she solve the case? It's like the case that you were brought up earlier. There was a girl in Old Town, Florida. She was 14. Her name was Demaya Appling. And she went missing in 2022, which is when the PI reached out to me with the family. And she didn't get justice. The family didn't get justice until this year, March of this year. Okay, so put that into perspective. However, when you look back at what we spoke about, the information that I provided, the intelligence from the other side, in order for the PI to bring this to investigators and everything, it was all accurate. I helped to find the body. I identified who was responsible, but it took from 2022 to March of 2026 for them to put this case together, get enough evidence, give the person due process, and then in 2026 that person got life in prison. So, and then for all those years, you're just like, because I become connected to these cases, I become connected to the family. You feel the things that they're feeling. I talk a lot about how, like, parents who are grieving and you're talking to them and you're giving them this information and there's just this heaviness and you don't forget that. You don't forget that mother sobbing. You don't forget the sound of that. You don't forget the emotions that are tied to that. And then you're carrying that and you're thinking to yourself, like, I know that this person is guilty. 2026, 2020, like all these years go by. And I'm like, what the heck? And then when you finally feel that, you feel this relief. But it's such a long journey and it's exhausting and it's emotional. And I can't even imagine, I don't want to imagine fully what these families are actually going through. So there's a lot of heaviness with these cases and with what I do.
Which you said in a podcast recently, I think I heard you, or maybe it was your own podcast, about how you used to dance to get that off of you. And now you're
Yeah.
not dancing really as much anymore. And so how do you get that out of your body? Because it does become very somatic, right? Like the body keeps the score, literally, that's stored in there. And you're right, you are
Yeah.
carrying this heavy load that people in nursing or therapists or detective work, they all carry that similar weight and you're carrying it too. So
Yeah.
how do you get that out of your body? How do you ground yourself and heal yourself?
Yeah, I had been doing dance and aerial arts up until I had our last son, Nico, and he's 2 now. So it's been close to 3 years since I've been in a studio or done any aerial arts or anything like that. It's been really hard. It's been really hard. I've had to find other ways. Like Nick and I really love to work out and having the kids and stuff, like you get to get outside and you get to play. It's not the same for me, but I've been determined to get back into it now, now that you could breathe a little bit and the kids are a little bit older. Perfect. But it's cool because like Nick and I function very similarly. And so we'll work out together or we'll go for a run or we'll go for a walk or we'll do these things to just like clear our heads. Nick's very intuitive as well. And so I've had to stay on top of him to learn to clear himself out too. And so, movement is really great for that. I think that like a movement meditation for people is so healthy. And so we do what we can until we can get back to where we want to be. And so I do plan to go back to dancing
Good.
and I do plan to go back to aerial and all that type of stuff.
Speaking of this guy Nick that you're married to,
That guy.
Yep. That Nick fellow character, how did you guys first meet and what was your first impression of him?
You're gonna die laughing. And this is a true story. This is funny. So I'm gonna preface this by saying I never wanted to do paranormal TV. It was not my thing. I loved the stage. I loved doing mediumship. I was approached by multiple production companies and TV shows for years prior to meeting Nick, including Ghost Adventures themselves. And they wanted me to be the medium on the new Ghost Adventures. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. That does not sound appeasing whatsoever. I am not an investigator. I don't think I would fit. And that's a whole story in itself. That's a whole other story for a different day.
Okay.
But so then, I'm doing my casino shows and everything. COVID hits and all entertainment shuts down as far as like live shows and venues and whatnot. And so I created a podcast. It was called A Night with a Medium. And the idea behind my podcast was bringing on people in the entertainment world from all aspects. I had actors from The Sopranos, my
Whoa, whoa,
buddies now.
whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, 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 whoa. Who are we talking about?
So Vinny Pastore, who played Big Pussy in Sopranos, is a good friend of mine now. Johnny Sack from The Sopranos, Vincent Curatola. I did acting classes with him. I'm really good friends with him and his wife. They are the most amazing people ever. I had them both. I had a couple other guys from The Sopranos as well on the podcast. And Anthony Rodea, the comedian, I had him on. My idea behind the podcast was like these people who are in entertainment, regardless of, I had people from Cirque du Soleil, Broadway, all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, I know that you guys have had like either paranormal experiences, have intuition, and I'm going to test this out. And so I did this podcast. Every single one of them, including my lovely Sopranos guys, have had paranormal experiences. They believe in mediums and they've had like messages from the other side or signs from the other side and all this stuff. And so my podcast was super fun because I'm like, I knew that there was a correlation, right? And so on my podcast, there was a mutual friend between Nick and I who owns the Hinsdale house. And
Dan Clapp.
he I've
Great.
I've known Dan since probably like 2014. And he will tell you, he'll be the first to tell you, because he was always like, Tessa, come do this event. And I was like, no, I don't want to do paranormal. I don't want to do it. And he's like, when am I going to get you to do paranormal? I'm like, you're not. So I invited Dan on, and Dan's like, do you want me to invite Nick Groff on the podcast? Like, he could be on it with me. And I was like, who is Nick Groff? And he's like, oh, he's from Ghost Adventures. And I was like, I guess, yeah. I was like, but what am I supposed to talk to him about? Because I don't know anything about the guy. Because I never watched Ghost Adventures or Paranormal Lockdown or any of his shows. Like, I never watched it. Totally embarrassing. Nick comes on. I literally said, so you're Nick from Ghost Hunters? Like, and nobody corrected me. It was super embarrassing.
Rude.
Super embarrassing to this day. And weirdly enough, like, our audio didn't work. I had a whole studio set up, and Nick's podcast was the only one ever to have audio or any type of issues, which then led me to have to contact him. I'm like, I am so sorry. This has never happened before. I'm like, do you want to come back on? Like, I promise it'll work next time. I feel really bad because you had a lot to say, but nobody heard you. And he agreed to come back on, right? And so when he got back on the podcast, him and I just, like, I don't know how to explain it. We just hit it off. But I was never in a million years going to approach him and try to talk to him afterwards, because I was like, he's going to think I'm nuts. Like, I'm not going to approach him. Like, he's going to think whatever. So whatever. I remember going to my mom and saying, you know what sucks? I'm like, this guy, because I didn't want to date anybody, FYI. I did not want to have anything to do with anybody. I was a single mom. I was like, I don't have time for this. And I said to my mom, I spoke to this really great guy today. He was so sweet. He had kids of his own. I loved who he was as a father. And yet he lives nowhere near me. I'll probably never speak to him again. I was like, so don't ever ask me about dating, because it's like all the people that anybody who I would really like this guy, he doesn't even live near me. And like a day later, I get a message from him. He's like, hey, and I kid you not, this was his opening question. He's like, hey, do you like rap music? And I like read this message. I was like, yeah, actually I do. I'm like, yeah, I do.
He's like 14.
Yeah. He's like, yes, yes. And I was like, yeah, actually I do. And that's literally how it began. We did not even connect on like the paranormal side of stuff. We connected on being parents. We connected on our interests and music. Like, we're big into music, the both of us, and all this stuff. And it was like, literally, we were just inseparable. And so when he approached me afterwards, he's like, oh, we're going to, we should do a show together. I was like, no, I'm not doing paranormal. I'm not. Absolutely not. And he tricked me into filming with him one day. And that's literally how he got me to do his shows.
What a smoke.
But, the cool thing, I think, too, is our connection and the diversity that we bring. Like, he's got a totally different background than me. He came from a different world, really. Like, even though it can cross over, they were different. He came from television, paranormal. He's the investigator. He's very logical, which is great. He likes using equipment. And like, for me, I'm like, I am the equipment. I don't need that. What I found was when we started working together and filming, I'd be picking up on something. All of a sudden, his stuff would validate it. And it just became this magnetic thing that took place. I saw his intuition heightening, and plus he was a very genuine person, and I trusted in the process of like, okay, he's not going to, I don't have to be overproduced. I don't have to be something that I'm not. He was very genuine. He cared about the locations, the people who own the locations, the spirits within the locations. And I was like, okay, this person I could actually work with. And that's really how it all began for us.
So wait, did you go see a rap concert? Like, what was the connection there?
No, we love rap. Like,
you
we
just
love
rap?
all the same type of music.
Okay. I thought maybe he was.
We went to see the Weeknd concert. Go figure.
Oh.
We went to see the Weeknd. Yeah.
I just took Enzo to his first concert ever at 14, ASAP Rocky in Toronto. Imagine that's your first concert. I was like, listen, kid, you got it made.
Nick's going to be so jealous. Nick will be so jealous.
I'm telling you, this show was so good. I've seen a lot of concerts in my life. That show was spectacular. It was theater. You would have loved it. It was theater.
Yeah. We're like the obnoxious parents that will blast music like Eminem, Notorious Big. Like, I'm talking like Tupac. I mean, Tupac. Like, we're ridiculous. We're ridiculous. But that's, if you hear that going down the street, it's probably me and Nick. For sure.
You have a show coming up. That seems really different. Can you talk a little bit
Yeah,
about?
our YouTube channel we named Groff Adventures, and what we did was we're doing a podcast on there,
Yeah.
a visual one, because there's so much that people are interested in about our life, just as parents, as paranormal couple with kids who are intuitive, and we're really going to utilize that platform to talk about that stuff, to talk about kids with intuition and our lives and like the truth behind that and what happens off camera. But that is going to be integrated into a new series that we're working on with a network right now that revolves around our life. And there's also another series that we're working on with a network as well that I'm really excited about. And what we're doing is we're going to be going into people's homes. We're taking a lot of home cases because I don't think it's done enough anymore. And we're trying to bring that authenticity back into the paranormal, where you're now focusing on people with things going on within their homes. Their kids are affected. They don't know where else to turn. There's so many emails and things that we receive on a daily basis. And I'm like, we had this opportunity with a really wonderful network, and it's going to be airing on a much larger platform. It's like, if we have this ability and these resources, I don't want to keep going to these haunted locations that everybody's going to.
Yeah,
To me, it just becomes so redundant. And I'm like, there are people that need help. There are people who don't know where to turn. They have children who are affected. There's these home cases. Like, we need to take our resources and go help them. And so that's what we're going to be doing in our new series. And we can't get rid of, like, tell about the title just yet.
sure.
But we have this family reality show that's going to be more reality driven. We have this brand new show with home cases, but the launch off is our Groff Adventures podcast that we've been doing, where we're talking about everything. And so we're really excited. We have a lot of filming coming up. We have a lot of stuff that we're going to be focusing and working on. But I think at the end of the day, we're really looking to bring that authenticity back to the paranormal field.
That, and you with your training in mental health, clinical mental health, you're going to be phenomenal at that, because you do need to kind of sniff out at first if that's what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've got
I
to
mean,
be able
you
to rule
you
that out.
you want to go. So when we get these cases, for example, like there's one case where there was like a 2-year-old girl, or maybe she was like a year and a half, but she was being woken up every single night. And there was like a woman in the closet that she would like constantly talk, like she was able to babble and stuff. And there was like a lady in the closet. But then the parents started having these dreams, and they were more verge of demonic dreams that they were having, which really upset them. And it was within the house. And so they called us. My hope is I walk into there and I'm like, you know what? This is not what's going on. This is something else. Let's help this family. Luckily for this case in specific, when I walked in, I was like, okay, there is a woman in the closet, but the woman in the closet was more protective. She was like looking out for this little girl. As a child, they can't really tell the difference. So it's a little off-putting, I think, to a kid when you just see something that you don't fully understand. But the woman was a positive spirit. She was very protective of the house, of the little girl, of the whole scenario. So then I'm like, okay, well, what is this negative part of it? And so when you hear like demonic dreams, you're hoping you don't walk in and there's demonic activity, which is very rare, FYI. It does not happen often. So we walk in, my immediate thought is, okay, good. This is not a demonic, because there is a vibe, there is a vibration that goes along with a demonic entity that is unmistakable. And I was like, I know it's not that, right? So that was a little bit weight off the shoulders. Come to find out, what it really had to do with, this negative energy throughout the house, had to do with objects that were hidden in the attic of the house that were holding on to this energy from a person who had a really traumatic and terrible, terrible life. And I immediately identified it. And I was like, if we need to get rid of these, because once you do, and then we could clear the house for you, everything's going to stop. The woman in the closet was not a concern. She's not anybody that you would want to get rid of. You probably can't get rid of her. She resides there, and she was very protective, and they were okay with that. And so we were able to help that family. And that was one of the more positive cases where you were able to find answers. It's not what you initially thought, and yet they found closure and they were able to sleep better at night.
Yeah, right. And, like you said, you each have your own, like, he's more the investigator. Obviously, you're very intuitive. So what a great combo. As a matter of fact, I'm taking one of your classes. You guys are teaching classes this summer at Lilydale, a couple of them, right?
Yeah.
Or a few of them.
Yeah.
So the one that I
Right
find,
now we have the one.
Go ahead.
Oh, we have the one on August 29th in Lilydale. We're going to be doing, which is such a crazy like circle around for me, because Lilydale was very important to me as a teen. That's
Me
a whole other
too.
story.
Me too.
Yeah,
We grew up in this area, so I mean, we get to have Lilydale in our area. Well, you got to have Niagara Falls and Lilydale. It's so
yeah,
funny because as a teenager, my best friend and I would go all the time, but we were broke teenagers. So literally we'd take turns driving when the other one hid in the trunk and we snuck it.
yeah. That's amazing.
How ghetto is that? I can't believe I just admitted that out loud. Sorry.
I love
I'll
it.
buy
That would be something. That's something I would have done. That's something me and my friends for sure would have done. So like I could vibe with that. Yeah. Uh, but no, it was really cool because Lilydale to me was kind of a jump off point where I realized that I can use my abilities the way that I can because of a woman named Janet No Havoc who was doing workshops there back in the day. She's the one who really like pulled it out of me and was like, you need to be doing this. So now, full circle, we're the ones coming to Lilydale. We're going to be doing a workshop and teaching this type of stuff. It's going to be kind of a mixture of everything. It's going to be mediumship. It's going to be kids with psychic abilities. But then later in the evening, we go to the assembly hall and I'll be doing a live gallery reading for everybody. And we're going to be speaking. So
don't know if I saw that one. Lilydale's website is very organic. Like
it is organic.
it's
It's organic. That's a good
just
word.
offers everything right there, and you have to like paw through to find everything.
Be August 29th. And then we have something planned for the following year as well. But August 29th, excuse me, is going to be that. It's like a whole workshop in the day and then a show later on at night, which is
Okay.
going to be really fun.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, oh my gosh, Tessa, thank you so much. I know we're over an hour, so I appreciate your time. I was going to ask you
Yes.
I ask everybody how the paranormal has positively impacted your life, but I feel like that's what we talked about the whole time today. But if you want to give like a sound bite for that.
Yeah, I think, for me, like I said, I avoided the paranormal for so long because I just think that maybe I was tainted from it, from certain things that I had seen. Um, and I always wanted to stay true to myself as a medium. And so I'll honestly say that now that when I met Nick years ago and we started this journey together, I think that the both of us really enhanced each other in a way. Like he opened up my eyes to a world that I was so closed off to, and vice versa, because I don't think Nick ever really met somebody with mediumship abilities who was able to help foster him as well. And so for me, I also think it opened up a lot of doors for me to help a lot of people. I was helping people prior. I was doing what I love to do. And I just think that like him and I together in this paranormal realm has opened up so many other doors for us to be able to help people with kids who are intuitive, help locations that have hauntings, help families that are having, situations. And I would have never thought that like my journey would end up this way, but I'm very grateful for that. And like, this is literally just the beginning.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
You're for the people and for your community. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
Truly. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Tessa, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I loved our talk. You're so cool. I could talk to you for hours.
Yeah. Same here.
Cool. And to all of our haunted hearts, thank you for listening. And if you want to connect with Tessa, please let everyone know how they can watch you or follow your work, watch Groff Adventures, keep up with everything you and Nick have going on, that type of thing.
Yeah. Both of us really utilize our social media platforms. So you can find me at Tessa Groff on Instagram and on Facebook. And, so everything, all of our events, anything we do, we religiously post on there. And then our YouTube channel is Groff Adventures at Groff Adventures on YouTube. And that's where you can watch the podcast that I've been talking about and learn more about our paranormal life.
Cool. All right, everyone. And remember, whether your ghosts are internal or external, they just deserve to be heard and understood. So until next time, stay curious and stay haunted. Bye, guys.